Hi. Hello. Hi. Yeah, don't lick that, please. Thank you. Hello. Who are you? Guys, check this out. The super cool things people have in their backyards. That is just awesome. Welcome back to another road trip type episode of Low Lead. In this one, we're continuing our trip from Abilene, Texas, where we had picked up Jacqueline Cochran's Curtiss-Wright 12Q, and headed east to Lebanon, Tennessee, where we met John, who, after seeing a pair of WAAAM aircraft that had been restored and brought to Oshkosh last year, he reached out to the museum to see if we might be interested in a particularly interesting project that he had in his possession. Initially, there had been discussion of trying to trade something. Unfortunately, we didn't have anything that the museum was willing to part with that John was also interested in. And so eventually he decided to just donate this project to the WAAAM so it could get restored.
I think so too, yeah. Well, I'll let you get to it. Let me show you, there's the rest of the parts are in there, and then tomorrow I'll do a sweep and make sure.
Okay, so the 2x4s here is a temporary stand because I was trying to see how heavy the tail of this was, and when I lifted the tail up a little bit, this gear leg almost completely fell out of this and dropped it on the ground, and it's barely holding this airplane up. So we built temporary cribbing. So basically the point is, going underneath this airplane is a really bad idea right now.
See if we get this to work.
Yeah. All right, so they are bolts, and the nut is already off. That one's pushing back out.
Is the trailer high enough for this?
There we go. Let me support this. We need to punch a screw out. Should. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
And then all the big bolts are off the center section. And there's only 6, 3 on each side of these big guys. Lost best. That, look at that construction. That's so cool. Okay, I'm going to issue a challenge here for all the aircraft fans out there. If you think you know what aircraft this is, I want you to pause the video and leave a comment down below telling us what type you think it is. I will explain a lot more about this aircraft later in the video. I can't believe that works. That is so rough. There's no point in having threads in it. So it doesn't look much different from when we got here 3 hours ago. But we have only 6 bolts left, we think, until the center section is free from the fuselage. And then it's all about loading. So hopefully, fingers crossed, tomorrow morning will go really fast. As you probably could have guessed, the next morning did not go really quickly. The tractor refused to start, and in fact, we never got it started the entire time we were there. So we had to change gears and come up with a new plan. Okay, so it's been a fun day. It's Thursday. It's day 2 in Tennessee on the XBT-12. Last night we disassembled all of the inspection panels, fairings, things that connected the fuselage to the center section, with the exception of the 6 really big main bolts. The plan was build a cradle for the center section, and then we were going to lift the center section, or the whole airplane really, with the tractor, pull the landing gear out of the center section and set it down on that foam cradle. Problem is, the tractor, unfortunately, that we were going to be using when swimming a few days ago, and it fired up yesterday, drove over to where we're working on this, and then this morning just won't start. So it's throwing a fit. So as a result, we have decided that the next best thing to do will be rent an excavator. So we went and rented a small excavator. We got it out here, and fortunately, almost everything went according to plan. You kind of have to admit, though, driving single lane back roads through the countryside of Tennessee with an excavator on the trailer is kind of fun. Once we had the excavator on site, we got it unloaded from the trailer, and we were able to squeeze it in between the disabled Kubota tractor and the airplane. We hooked it up to the motor mounts on the firewall in order to be able to lift the entire airplane off its gear legs. And then, as I had stated previously, the plan was to remove both main landing gear and set that center section down on that giant foam cushion. As soon as we lifted the airplane up, the left gear leg pretty much dropped right out of the center section without any effort. But the right gear leg, despite our best efforts, despite having removed all the hardware holding it in the previous evening and hit it with penetrating lubricant, would not budge. Jim and I spent probably a solid half hour trying to remove that right gear leg, and finally had to give up and change gears and set the center section on its leading edge in the yard just to get it out of the way of the fuselage so we could continue breaking this airplane down, because as it was assembled was just way too big to fit in our trailer. Once we had the center section out, we set the fuselage down on a set of tires to keep it from rolling over while we built a dolly and cradle to support the fuselage both loading and while transporting it home in the trailer.
Okay. You did it, buddy.
So, here we are. We got the fuselage off the center section. We're building structure to secure the fuselage to so it doesn't fall over in the trailer, and we can load it easily on a dolly with wheels, all that good stuff. In order to make room for Jim to do that, I decided to move the fuselage or center section out of the way, and now the excavator won't start. So the rental company is sending a tech over, and we're we're collecting inoperable equipment because unfortunately there's no room left to fit a third machine in here because the other two are taking up all the space. So while we were waiting on a mechanic to show up and figure out what was wrong with the excavator, I took that chance to get the trailer unloaded and get Jackie's Curtiss-Wright 12Q out of the trailer so that we could load the XBT-12 in first and try and get the larger fuselage and most of the weight towards the front of the trailer for the long drive home back to Oregon. Now, as I've just given away, this aircraft that we're collecting is the XBT-12, prototype to the production BT-12 Sophomore. There were only 24 production aircraft built during World War II, and as far as we can find, all of them have been scrapped, and this is the lone surviving example of the Fleetwings BT-12 bloodline. Shortly after World War II, this aircraft was mothballed and lent to a trade school to be used as a teaching asset. And after a few years was found and procured by a gentleman by the name of Walter Saplata out of Newberry, Ohio, who is somewhat famous for having found and saved a bunch of warbirds over the years at his Saplata Aircraft Sanctuary, which has become somewhat world famous. Some of the things that make this airplane kind of exciting are the fact that being a Fleetwings aircraft and as such built out of stainless steel, the components that we have here are in remarkably good condition. There's essentially no corrosion whatsoever on any of the stainless steel components. A lot of the aluminum components are in really good condition. The only major corrosion issues that we found on the whole aircraft are in the very tail cone portion, which is actually a welded tubular steel subassembly that is bolted to the rest of the aircraft. That said, as the aircraft is spot welded stainless steel, it is a really complex design. The individual sub-assemblies are really maintenance friendly as far as being easy to assemble and reassemble to each other to put the airplane together. It was not that hard, despite some rust and corrosion, to get the center section off of this fuselage. The downfall of this aircraft came in the over-engineering brilliance of the design, as every single component of that fuselage is made up of smaller stamped stainless sheet metal parts that are spot welded together, making the actual construction and production of this aircraft hugely labor intensive, which is probably a large part of the reason that this aircraft never saw large production numbers during World War II. The next hurdle was getting the airplane into our car hauler. The fuselage was a little bit taller than we had really anticipated, and with the dolly built underneath it, we only had about 2 inches of clearance on the bottom and about an inch of clearance on the top of this airplane, getting it through the door of our trailer. But we were able to get it in and get it home safely, but it took us a little bit of doing, especially because about every 3 feet in the trailer was a set of strut for tying down and putting in anchors to tie down and secure loads, and getting the wheels of that dolly to go over each of those struts fought us all the way into the trailer.
Yeah.
So, as you can see here, Jim and I are very carefully trying to load this with the excavator without running him over or mangling the aircraft against any of the trailer structures. And, of course, I was having a great time on an excavator doing my best Heavy D Sparks impression. But, at the same time, we were burning daylight, and we only had a 1-day rental on this excavator, and had already gone over the budget of what we had expected to spend on this recovery. And so, as soon as the airplane was loaded, we unhooked it from the tractor, and I ran this thing back to the rental company so that we didn't end up having to pay for another day of equipment rental.
We're good. How's the height? Do you want it up or down at the tail? And then let's shim it, and I gotta load this thing and go.
All right, I got everything loaded up. It's almost 8 a.m., 8:30 on a Friday morning, and now we start the trek home. So after we had everything buttoned up, and we said farewell to John and thanked him for his hospitality and generosity, we got back on the road for the long haul back across the continent to Hood River, Oregon. Unlike the drive south, Jim and I chose not to try and push through and marathon the entire drive home in one shot, and wound up taking about 2.5 days to get back to Hood River. Arriving is Sunday evening, parking the truck and trailer, and leaving it for the shop crew to unload early the next week. Once we had the aircraft out and we had assessed the condition of both airplanes, we moved Jacqueline Cochran's Curtiss-Wright 12Q into the restoration hangar, where it's begun work, where work has begun on getting that aircraft cleaned up and repairs have been made. As for the XBT-12, we pressure washed the entire aircraft and removed years of pitch and leaves and sap that had accumulated on and in the airplane from sitting outside at the Saplata Aircraft Sanctuary. And then we began assessing the condition of the airplane and cataloging what parts and pieces we have for it. Right now we have a fuselage, center section, a lot of the cockpit internals, horizontal stabilizer, vertical stabilizer, and one good elevator. So there's a bunch of missing pieces, there's quite a few damaged pieces, and there's a lot of information we just don't have yet. The construction of the parts that we have and the condition of the parts that we have are pretty amazing. While some of the steel components are corroded and rusted beyond salvage, they are good templates for making replacement parts. The stainless components are in immaculate condition, and most of them are not even damaged in any way. There's a few broken pieces, but we have enough information to make repairs to those. But the missing components, especially the outboard wing panels, are going to be a huge undertaking. So right now, we're in the process of trying to accumulate information and knowledge about this aircraft, regarding any kinds of documents, blueprints, plans, anything like that that we can find in order to be able to restore this airplane in the future. We have managed to repair that left main landing gear and get it reinstalled in the center section. Both axles have been cleaned up, new bearings and main gear have received wheels and tires so that we can move the aircraft easily around the museum and display it in its current state. It is a really cool and amazing piece of engineering, technology, and history to get to display as is currently. That said, it's also cordoned off with a little bit of a wide buffer area because of the sharp, broken edges of all the stainless steel components on this airplane. As is, many of the pieces are already sharp edges to begin with, and the broken pieces are even more jagged and sharp. And most of us who have walked around this airplane have walked away bleeding in surprising and suspicious new ways. So, if you want to see this incredible piece of aviation history as it currently sits, you should come check it out at the WAAAM. I don't know how long it's going to be that we store it in this condition before we start actively trying to restore this airplane. But it is incredible to see the internal design of this airplane as is. With that, I'm going to sign off here for this episode, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.